So where does all this, so in terms of energy efficiency, so let's look a little bit at this. So the first law of thermodynamics is the physical law which states that the total energy of a system and its surrounding remain constant. The law is also known as the law of conservation of energy, which states energy can transform from one form into another, but can neither be created nor destroyed within an isolated system. And that's a pretty conventional interpretation. And there you have a diagram which basically shows the energy that goes in. So for example, if we're talking, that system process, if we say we're talking about, say, your car, the internal combustion energy, the internal combustion engine that you have in your car. So you got the energy coming in, so that's petroleum, gas. It goes in, and you actually have the process, the internal combustion energy, generating heat and so forth that drives the pistons. So you have energy coming out, which is your tires being rotated, and that of course is how the car works. And you have loss. You have loss in terms of the exhaust, and that's the way conventional system operates, where you have a closed system. So the internal combustion energy, internal combustion engine is an example of a closed system in terms of you can measure the energy going in, the potential energy in the oil, and the energy going out in terms of the work that's performed on the tires and the heat that's coming out, and so that's a closed system, and energy remains constant. If you measure the work being done by the pistons driving the camshaft that rotates the wheels, and the energy that's lost through heat, that all exactly matches the potential energy inside of the gas. So that's a closed system, and so that's how energy efficiency is measured. Now, this is where we get into why a lot of these inventions have been subjected to national security orders, because of over-unity inventions allegedly violate energy conservation laws. So in an over-unity machine or engine or invention, the energy input is 100%, whatever goes in is 100%, but the energy output is 150%, or could be much more than that. But the important thing is that it's over unity because it's over 100%. And this is where people like Nikola Tesla were the first that we know of that came up with these over unity devices. I mean, he came up with a radiant energy device. I think it was in 1906 from memory. A radiant energy device, 1906. That's over 100 years ago. But of course, as we know, Nikola Tesla was shut down, driven into poverty, and his free energy devices were never put into effect because there was too much money being made from the fossil fuel industry, J.P. Morgan and so forth. As I'm sure many of you are aware, was just making huge profits and didn't think that coming up with over unity devices where you tap into the Earth's kind of natural electromagnetic field and use that to power devices, that would have been an over unity device, but that would have bankrupted a lot of the oil companies. And Standard Oil back in the days, today it's Exxon, and some other offshoots, but Standard Oil was huge back in those days, and J.P. Morgan was running a bank and also had lots of interests in Standard Oil, which was run by the Rockefeller family. So you kind of get an idea of the major companies that were against any of these over unity devices ever coming into existence, and why it is that you would have had patents that were dealing with these over unity inventions being subjected to national security orders. because they're far more efficient to 70 to 80%, which is the top end of, say, nuclear fission. But over Unity, you're 150%, 200%, or whatever it is, and this is very real. And because these over Unity devices allegedly violate the energy conservation law, then they're ridiculed. Any examiner in the patent office who looks at an alleged over Unity device says, well, this violates the energy conservation law, so it can't work, it's impossible. And so they'll dismiss it. Or if the inventor is smart enough to be able to frame it in a way that it's not going to be objected to by the patent examiner, nevertheless, someone can say, well, this allegedly has an energy efficiency of, say, 95%. While that we can subject that to national security orders. So there are different ways in which any kind of over Unity device is blocked and never sees the light of day in terms of a patent. And it is a kind of it's very short-sighted because often what these Unity devices do is, especially when you look at Nikola Tesla, where he says that he is tapping into the radiant energy field, or the Earth's electromagnetic field, and he's able to tap into that and able to produce electricity that could be used for whatever purpose. That many scientists look at that and they don't recognize the Earth's electromagnetic field as a legitimate energy input device. So here you have like your over Unity machine. If you say, okay, I'm tapping into the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is abundant, which is what Tesla was able to do, and you're able to generate a lot of energy because of that through your device. Well, obviously your output, doesn't really violate energy conservation law, because what your input is actually the Earth's electromagnetic field. So, there's abundant energy there. And so, your energy efficiency in reality is going to be tiny compared to the Earth's electromagnetic field. But of course, scientists, engineers, or patent examiners will say that, well, what powers your over Unity device? What's the power supply? Maybe there's a little battery that kind of that's used to get it all going. But then once it's going, it's generating sufficient power. Well, the examiner will say, well, this is a perpetual motion machine. It's impossible, so I'm not going to grant the patent. So, but that's overlooking the fact that that machine might be tapping into the Earth's electromagnetic field, or into the 0-point field that others have talked about. Okay, so we've seen now that patent applications can be stymied. So publication of new patents applications through the US Patent and Trademark Office is an effective end run around the obstacles to declassification and lifting of secrecy orders. So we're talking about, okay, I've described the problems here. So how do you reinvent the wheel? How do you kind of get around these secrecy orders that have been put in place to prevent patents from being published and being made available to the general public, or that have been used in classified programs and have not been declassified? What can you do about that? Well, one way is to kind of like put in a new patent application for something very different, but operates on similar principles, and do it in a way that it can get through this system of the Patents Office putting secrecy orders on it. So the US Navy is circumventing obstacles to declassification and secrecy orders on advanced aerospace technologies through the publication of patents assigned to the Secretary of the Navy. So this is the Navy's way of getting around this system, which has blocked a lot of these new kinds of inventions ever being released into the public arena, is that you actually have patent applications being made on behalf of a major institution like the US Navy, so that the actual Navy puts its full weight behind that patent application. So that way that patent application cannot be withheld. So that so the patent examiner isn't going to be forced to issue a national security order or secrecy order on that patent application, because the Navy is behind it. If it was just someone who doesn't have a powerful institution like the Navy behind him, then the patent examiner could either deny it or have a secrecy order put in place, because in their view, they might have, say, some other government agency say, no, this could violate national security. But because this is coming from the Navy, then it's much harder to have a secrecy order put in place. It's much harder for another government entity to say, well, this is a violation or this could threaten national security, because it's the Navy that's behind it. So this is the way in which the US Navy could put its force or its prestige behind an invention and kind of like ram it through the patent office. So this, to my mind, is similar to reinventing the wheel. So we're going to see that. We're going to see exactly how the Navy has been doing this through a series of patent applications. And these patent applications are revolutionary. They involve using innovative electromagnetic technologies that are far more efficient than the conventional propulsion systems that we know of, like in the rocket industry. And the fossil fuel industry really has no answer to these kinds of technologies being released. But because it's the Navy that's behind this, that makes it something that we can be optimistic about, that as members of the general public, we can see, okay, a major government entity, the United States Navy, actually the Department of the Navy, is behind these patents. They want this to be publicized. They want the public to learn about these. They want scientists at different universities, at different companies, to look at these patents and say, hey, we can build this. We can build this, and we can actually build a craft, or we can build a propulsion system. And I'll talk about the different technologies. So we're going to be looking at some of the different technologies that the Navy has arranged for this inventor, Salvador Cesar Paez, to have published through the Patents Office. So who is Salvador Cesar Paez? In 1999, he got his PhD from Case Western Reserve University. Then he began to work as a general engineer and advanced concepts analyst with Northrop Grumman. And that began immediately after he got his PhD. So for a few years, he was with Northrop Grumman. And the important thing is Northrop Grumman, they are one of the companies that has, that participates in unacknowledged special access programs that are built out of Palmdale, California, out of Plant 42. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that there may be a connection here between Cesar Paez and what's being built at Plant 42, that he may have seen some of this stuff. He may have worked on some of this stuff. And as you can see, he was an advanced concepts analyst with Northrop Grumman. So he would be exactly the sort of person who would have been involved in some of these special access programs dealing with anti-gravity technologies, electromagnetic propulsion systems that were being built out of places like Plant 42 on behalf of the Air Force by Northrop Grumman. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So after he works with Northrop Grumman for a few years, then he moves over and begins working with the Naval Air War Center Aircraft Division. So now he moves from Northrop, which does contracts for the Air Force, for the Navy, but now he's working directly for the Navy. And currently he's working with the Strategic Systems Programs, the Department of the Navy. And you know, the acronym for that, SSP, I thought that's quite interesting. I mean, probably coincidental, but maybe not. SSP, because as many of you know, I've been doing a lot of work since 2015 on SSPs, secret space programs. So quite interesting that you have that acronym. But anyway, so that tells you a little bit about Salvador Payés. So as I mentioned, he was working with Northrop Grumman on advanced concepts design. And in 2004, he applied for a patent on behalf of Northrop Grumman. And so here you have on the right-hand side, it tells you this you can find on Google. You have the patent number. Tells you the inventor. This is the person who invented the patent. And it tells you the assignee. So it tells you that it's Northrop Grumman Systems Corporation. So this is basically telling us that Salvador Payés invented this and that Northrop Grumman is assigned all rights to this patent. So yeah, this was something that Payés developed directly on behalf of Northrop Grumman. So even though he's listed as the inventor, the assignee gets to have, build it, use the license and so forth. It tells you worldwide application. It was applied for in the United States. Down here it tells you the application process. So in July of 2004, the application was filed by Northrop Grumman. It was given priority. The patent then was assigned to Northrop Grumman, and then it was published in 2006, January, was published by Northrop Grumman. So that means it's basically listed, and that's why we can see it. If it wasn't published by Northrop, if there is an option when you file for a patent, the inventor has an option where they can choose to have the patent published or not. If they choose to not have it published, that means that inventor and the assignee could basically go forward with patent protection, but others don't know about it. So it prevents others from basically ripping off your patent, but there's a downside to that because you might not be able to kind of like go out and get as many, grant as many licenses in the commercial sector because the patent hasn't been published. Okay, so now, so that first patent application, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. That first application was published in 2004. Salvador Payés is working with Northrop Grumman at the time. And then at some point, I don't know the exact year, but Salvador Payés begins working for the Navy. And in 2015, he files for the first of 5 patent applications for the Navy. So this is the first one he's filed on behalf of the Navy. So here he's filed it. There's the patent number application. It tells you the inventor, tells you the current assignee, US Secretary of Navy. So this basically tells us that this is something that belongs to the Department of the Navy. So it's the Department of the Navy that owns this patent. People get confused often between the Department of the Navy and the Navy as a military service. The Department of the Navy actually runs 2 military services. It runs the Navy, the US Navy, and the US Marine Corps. but the Department of the Navy is the kind of administrative body that runs both of those military branches. And the Secretary of the Navy is in charge of both the US Navy and the US Marine Corps. So the Department of the Navy basically owns this patent. So it was filed in 2015 by the Secretary of the Navy. It was given priority in July of 2015. It was assigned to the Navy. Then it was published and the application was granted. So in the earlier one, the patent application was also granted. So here, the Navy application was granted in 2018 in November. And there's a good reason for why there was such a delay. You can see 2015, the application was filed. The patent was granted in 2018, more than 3 years later. And it was published in 2017. So that's when the public could see for the first time Salvador Payes's patent application. So this application is for an electromagnetic field generator, a method to generate an electric field. And so there you have the abstract. And rather than reading out the abstract, I have a description or a summary of it. But you could go and read the abstract yourself if you're more technically minded and can understand that. But to kind of like to simplify it down, because I know a lot of you are not engineers. I'm not an engineer. I'm a political scientist. So I do appreciate it when you have engineers summarizing these complex patent abstracts. So here you have Brett Tingley from the Drive, and the Drive is a great resource if you want to understand these patent applications that Salvador Payes has put together. Just go to the Drive, which is an online site, and they've got a number of articles, and they do a really great job in just explaining this in layman's terms is what's going on. So in this patent application, in the patent for the high energy electromagnetic field generator, the technology is described as being able to create what is essentially a force field straight out of science fiction, one that could generate an impenetrable defensive shield to sea and land, as well as space-based military and civilian assets, protecting these assets from such threats as anti-ship ballistic missiles, radar evading cruise missiles, top attack for main battle tanks, land and sea-based systems, as well as countering the effects of solar-induced coronal mass ejections or defending critical military satellites in an ASAT, that's anti-satellite role, space-based system. So this is really incredible. This patent technology, this patent application truly is, for many in the public sector that maybe have not been looking at some of the kind of secret space program material, when you have this kind of patent application for this high energy electromagnetic field generator, it truly is quite incredible. And you can protect, by generating this electromagnetic field, this impenetrable shield, you can protect a lot of things. You can protect cities, you can protect regions, top secret facilities, and if it's powerful enough, even an entire region or a country from any kind of attack or coronal mass ejection. I mean, that's a big one, because people are very worried about, well, what happens with the sun? People have been talking about massive solar flares, coronal mass ejections, even a solar burst, a massive solar burst, a mini nova. Could this kind of shield protect you from that? on.